solid numbers. Employers added 177,000 jobs last month. The labor market keeps humming along for now, despite all the turmoil caused by President Trump's tariffs. The White House taking credit for the job growth after blaming former President Biden for a drop in GDP earlier this week. Trump says he sees this as a sign that Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell should now cut interest rates. Ivy retribution. The president announces he will rescind Harvard University's tax-exempt status. Does he mean it, and is it legal? We'll get into that on the show. And governor's mansion or the White House? That's the question on former Vice President Kamala Harris's mind. We have some new reporting on her political future. Let's start tonight, though, with Ed O'Keefe. He is here on set with me, and Ling Kent, who is in Los Angeles. Welcome to both of you. And Ling, I'm going to start with you because you are the number cruncher. If you just looked at this jobs report, you'd really have no idea that there's been all this uncertainty sparked by the tariffs. Why is that?
Yeah, so far we've seen some strong hiring in April, so the numbers were good when it comes to healthcare and warehousing and transportation. You saw remember that import surge that we've been talking about over the past several weeks? You saw that create additional jobs in that category. However, we did see the federal government lose about 9,000 jobs in April, so that's very much noteworthy. But so far it appears for these non-farm payrolls that the jobs market, it remains very healthy. There are certain smaller signs of weakness, but we did see strong numbers when it came to wage growth as well. Wage growth still outpacing inflation. You like to see that as well, but certainly noteworthy when it comes to some of the cuts that are already in play. We saw most of that happening, no surprise, in federal government jobs, Nancy.
Right. Job losses in the federal government sector. Ed, we see a pattern now. When the economic news is bad, it's Joe Biden's fault. When the economic news is good, it is because of President Trump. How long can he keep saying that, and is it working?
He's probably going to keep going at it for a while. But in this case, they point out that the jobs report for the second month in a row exceeded estimates, which is true. And as they put it at the White House today, this is, quote, exactly what we want to see. And certainly any president would want to see positive job growth amid all the other questions. But clearly what that earlier report in the week suggested is that the tariffs are causing so much uncertainty right now, and a lot of husbanding of resources and buying ahead just in case. As Ling said, it created some jobs, but it's caused so many companies to, have to cancel their annual forecasts and potentially hold back on hiring. We'll see going forward whether or not we start to see more of an effect.
And so, Ling, what is the forecast at this point when you take into account the drop in GDP, drop in consumer sentiment, but now strong job growth? What does the economy look like right now? And is everyone just kind of holding their breath to see what happens in the next 6 weeks?
Nancy, that's exactly what small business owners are telling us, that they have no capacity to plan right now because so many of them are facing 145% tariffs on Chinese imports, right? So many of these owners and the purchasing managers are looking at what's going to happen over the next 6 months, and they're thinking, okay, what are we going to do? We can't afford to bring in the goods that we might want to bring in for, say, the holiday season. One other piece of data that I think we should talk about is private payrolls that came out earlier this month for the month of April. Those actually were a slower than expected increase of only 62,000 jobs. So that's another important number that we're looking at in that broader picture that you mentioned when it comes to all of this economic data. So you have people feeling a certain way, but strong jobs. And as we look forward, the question is going to be, as the planning becomes more and more imperative for purchasing and for imports, how will that actually affect the way people are hiring? We know that many small businesses, ranging from restaurants to, stationery companies and beyond, they're holding off on hiring. They're looking at cutting salaries. They've been able to sustain the past, say, month or so since that so-called Liberation Day, but they are now coming up against a wall where they have to make difficult, challenging decisions that they don't want to have to make, Nancy.
Right, and do these trade deals materialize, as the White House says they will, or not? But speaking of jobs, Ed, we are now learning that Mike Waltz, who is leaving his job as the National Security Advisor, was offered an array of other jobs before he landed on ambassador to the UN.
Well, our Jennifer Jacobs reporting that, among others, it was to be ambassador to Saudi Arabia. That was presented as one possibility, and he passed on that, instead opting for New York and the United Nations. Both jobs would require Senate confirmation, and the White House seems confident that that's going to happen, although there will be new questions from Democrats about that whole Signalgate situation, the sharing of information on the Signal app. But either way, he's decided to go to New York. The White House continuing to insist he wasn't fired. He's merely being given another role. In some respects, it's a promotion, yes, because you're Senate confirmed and it comes with a staff. In the case of being in New York, you get a nice place to live.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was clear that he was not working well or effectively with certain people in the West Wing. And there were concerns, of course, across the president's coalition that he was insufficiently MAGA and too tied to the past of the Republican Party, which so many that lead the party now disagree with and are concerned about.
And the president has made it pretty clear he doesn't think that highly of the UN.
No, right. So it's like, we'll send you to New York, you'll do this job, and maybe be held there in suspense for something else to open up back here in Washington at some point, which could always happen.
But it's better to keep him inside the tent.
Right.
Because if you don't offer him another job, then you've got someone who could be pretty disgruntled and on the outside
Right.
after giving up his safe Florida House seat
Right.
in order to become the national security advisor in the first place.
Exactly. And there's a whole crop of former national security advisors to Trump who are more than happy to spend time talking about him. Wouldn't be good to have him out there as well.
All right. Ed O'Keefe here in Washington, Ling Kent in Los Angeles. Thank you both so much.